The following is an America Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Vote for me and I'll set you free.
Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Come together right now over me.
Everybody, if you don't know, it is time for America Matters Live with Leo Zacky, gubernatorial candidate for the state of California. He'll be joining us shortly.
Right here.
Oh, there he is. He's right there. So I'm glad you're there, Leo, and I'm going to take it over. And I'll tell you, I broke it out in segments so that we can get the wisdom from you and Joshua today. While all I do is kind of chime in whenever you ask me
For
to.
sure, Eddie. We appreciate that. Well, thank
And
you.
yeah, and also I'm happy to chime in with any text
Oh.
messages that come in.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're clued in, Eddie. We know what's going on, brother.
All right.
Welcome, everybody, to America Matters. Leo Zacky here with Joshua Matrician and Eddie Floyd. Well, we've got quite a bit of things to talk about today. It's Monday, May 5th. That's right. It's Cinco de Drinko, a.k.a. Cinco de Mayo. I know, Eddie, you haven't partaken in Cinco de Drinko in quite a few years, and
That's right.
that's a good thing. Not encouraging anybody to go out there and get completely obliterated or get drunk. It's just a fun little thing to say. It's become such a weird holiday here in America, even though it's Mexico's Independence Day. But
Yeah, they don't even celebrate it, Leo. That's a sad, a crazy thing.
we've Americanized it.
Yep.
One good thing from south of the border.
Amen. Amen, brother. Well, I'm going to start you and Josh off, if you don't mind. And if you will, I'll either call you Josh or Joshua, whichever one you feel the most comfortable with, Josh. But right now, I'm going to start you both off with, and it'll go to you first, Leo. What the hell is the Prop 65 scam?
Well, if you ever bought coffee or chocolate or even a simple chair in California, you've probably seen it. It's the Prop 65 warning label. And you're going to hear a clip here in a little bit that basically lays out the basics of why Prop 65 is broken and how it's a law that's supposed to somehow protect consumers. And, well, now it might be doing the exact opposite. So after the clip here, I want you to stay with me because we're gonna go even deeper on this, and I'll explain why this system isn't just broken; it's literally being weaponized. So it leaves consumers more confused and vulnerable than ever before. So, look, Prop 65 officially was called the Safe Drinking Water and Toxic Enforcement Act, which you can clearly see they're doing an abysmal job of that here in California. And it was passed back in 1986, and it had a clear and noble goal to warn consumers about chemicals that they might, cause cancer or birth defects. But now apparently every building that you walk into causes cancer or birth defects.
Right.
Just because now buildings have labels, it's a whole concept. It's just insanity. But the idea was that transparency leads to safer choices. But over the decades, though, that list grew from a few dozen to nearly 900 different substances. So,
Good Lord.
these warning signs started showing up everywhere on coffee cups and handbags, furniture, parking garages, even natural foods of all things, right? So here's the kicker. The warning doesn't explain how much of a chemical is present or whether it's at a level that actually possesses a real-world health risk. It just says that some exposure exists, no context, no dose, no real info. So before we go any further, I got this clip here I want to play for y'all, so let's roll that.
All right.
This warning label might actually be making food and other consumer products more dangerous. Let me explain. Okay, so if you lived in California, you've probably come across this Prop 65 warning label on things that you've purchased saying that, hey, this product might contain a chemical that causes cancer. It comes from a law passed back in 1986 that was, quote, intended to empower consumers to make informed choices about their health and protect themselves from potentially harmful exposures. This Prop 65 chemical list has now grown to nearly 900 different chemicals that are supposed to be disclosed by companies. Now, the sketchy part here is that some products have this label, other ones don't. And the natural assumption is that if you come across a product like this person has that has this Prop 65 label, you'll think, oh, maybe I shouldn't buy this because it could contain a cancer-causing chemical. But the reality is that it's almost got nothing to do with it and might even be the exact opposite. The reason for that is that Prop 65 is known as what they call a bounty hunter law, meaning that the enforcement mechanism is just people suing the company if they think they're in violation of Prop 65. There are now law firms making millions of dollars just specializing in Prop 65 litigation. So what ends up happening in practice is that small businesses, they can afford to get involved in this kind of litigation because it'll just destroy their business. So what they do is they just preemptively slap the Prop 65 label on it to mitigate any kind of lawsuit, but that does lead to consumers thinking that, hey, this product might contain these cancer-causing chemicals, even if they don't. Big businesses, on the other hand, they have unlimited resources, so a lot of times what they do is that they just don't disclose until they get sued. One example is Trader Joe's. They are a frequent violator of Prop 65. This is an article back from 2013, they were sued because consumers found lead in their ginger and plum candies. This one's from 2017. They were sued for not disclosing the chemical acrylamide in their products. 2023, they were sued for dark chocolate that allegedly contained harmful levels of lead and cadmium. I just found another lawsuit from 2024. This one is for lead in their cassava chips, so clearly they don't give a fuck. So yeah, don't let billion-dollar brands decide what's safe for you. My advice is always going to be do your own research, find founder-owned brands, and decide for yourself.
So yeah, it's now that you've heard that, because 65's issues don't stop with confusing consumers, and the law has created a legal environment that critics say encourages extortion instead of protection, and it sounds like that's kind of what's the case. So think about it, with everything carrying a cancer warning, what happens if you start ignoring the warnings altogether? And psychologists call this alarm fatigue, and you can argue that one way or the other. I mean, anytime the government gets you all riled up about something, I tend to ignore it because the government doesn't know what they're doing. That's my opinion. What do you think, Josh?
Well, first of all, I know that video kind of puts Trader Joe's on blast. We love Trader Joe's. We shop there all the time. It's got some great unique stuff. But what it's bringing up is that this Prop 65 warning label, it's become so litigated, right? That the only way for small family businesses to be able to kind of sidestep the potential liability for these lawsuits is to put this label on everything. So if you put it on everything, it completely loses its potency. So obviously it needs to be reworked.
Yeah, I agree. Well, look, let's continue talking about this a little bit more when we get back from the first break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd, Josh Matriciano. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Eddie Floyd. Let me tell you about my favorite non-profit public charity, Wainema Wild Horse Sanctuary, located on the Forsyth Ranch in Hallelujah Junction area. And please go to www.wainemaranch.com. That's WYNEMA ranch.com.
At A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, we've been accomplishing happy feet for over 30 years.
We offer a various range of shoe styles and sizes for both men and women. From all-season shoes and orthotics to work boots and safety shoes, our professional and reliable staff possesses the knowledge to help you find the proper shoes to fit your needs. Hard to fit? Hard to find?
A Proper Fit Footwear is here to give our customers happy feet. We make people aware of potential foot problems as we're sizing their feet, suggesting the right arch support, and guiding them to the proper shoes for their needs.
Stop by a Proper Fit Footwear at 4001 South Virginia Street in the Reno Town Mall today and allow the owner Mike Jones and our fabulous staff to find the perfect pair of shoes tailored to your specific needs.
A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, the home of Happy Feet, where comfort and your feet meet.
I can't believe he found them.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What, did he balance on that big chair?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd and Joshua Matriciana today. And we were just talking about Prop 65 and, well, just kind of how it's a bit overbearing and, well, confusing. So we're just talking about how, like, it's got all these things that tell you about what can cause cancer, but it doesn't tell you what amounts of those things are that could potentially cause cancer. And people just got to the point where they don't believe it anymore. And you have big companies that ignore these propositions, warning labels, and, don't post them. And then they wind up just fighting off anything that happens in a lawsuit later down the line. So, because they can afford to fight and delay and quietly pay out settlements without, changing much about their products. It's crazy to think that, companies like Trader Joe's. Well, here's the thing: Trader Joe's doesn't make their own stuff. They do what's called private label. I know this because, well, I only sold them 50% of all the ground turkey that they sold. So I know a thing or two about what Trader Joe's does with private label. And so what they do is they find a product that they like, and then they go to the manufacturer that makes it, and they say the only way that you'll be able to carry your product on our shelves is if we slap our label on it. And there's, of course, a few exceptions in Trader Joe's that bigger companies with extremely well-known brands are allowed to get away with putting their own label on there. But that's because they are of that megacorp scale and size. So when they're going out there and sourcing this stuff, it's pretty crazy how I guess they're not doing enough research into the product. They just want to carry the product because I guess maybe it does well in focus groups and testing, groups. So the fact that they're having things like lead or other contaminants in there that can hurt people, it's pretty crazy how they're taking a very loose stance on what goes out there into the world from their products because they slap their label on it. So anyways, getting back to Prop 65, it's not really focused on consumer safety. It's a system that rewards aggressive litigation and, well, it leads to truly risky products still on the market. So,
wow.
Josh, anything else to talk about on this?
Well, I'm hearing a little bit of an echo here. Hopefully, it's not from me, but I'm seeing that there is, this kind of goes along with the whole like litigation frenzy that we use in the United States. I mean, this is all things that can be repaired. Again, issues that the government has made problems, the government can fix in this situation here.
Right. No, I agree. But it's California, so you can't expect it to get done efficiently. Now, can you? They love lawsuits. They love everything being tied up in the courts and legal mumbo jumbo because, well, that's how these lawyers make their money. So, yeah. This is getting a little boring. So let's move on to another subject here. Oh, California Senate Bill 560. This will be exciting, I'm sure. Was introduced by Senator Lola Smallwood Cuvas, a Democrat representing LA. And, well, at the heart of this bill, it's to decriminalize welfare fraud and involving amounts under $250,000.
No, I think it's $25,000.
Oh, excuse me, $25,000. I misread that. Yeah. Wow. Welfare fraud. Who'd have thought?
Okay, look, I can bring this into perspective here. First of all, we're talking about the basically the waste, fraud, and abuse going on with Prop 65. Okay, and how that because small businesses are getting hurt because they can't they can't afford to have the legal protection to say they just slap the label on everything, right? Well, this brings us to the next part, which Senate Bill 560, this is kind of a continuation of that. So again, we're talking, first of all, from the government putting in regulations here to protect the health of the people and saying, okay, well, back in 1986 or whatever, they say, okay, well, corporations are putting hazardous materials into food and they should put a warning on there. Well, since then, 40 years later, pretty much, we've got the issue where that rule has essentially become, let's say, castrated. Now, cut to today when we're talking about this Senate bill, when we're actually going into looking at the waste, fraud, and abuse that's happening here, they're saying welfare fraud, you're going to decriminalize it. Man, this is just another issue that we need to bring to the public's attention, because
Right.
Yeah, well, it's because it's talking about eliminating criminal penalties for attempted fraud under $950. There's that magic number again, 950, the magic number where you're allowed to steal here in California. Well, not anymore, but you were allowed to steal in California, so they've now just migrated it over to welfare fraud. Awesome.
So basically, you're allowed to steal $25,000 from the government. And then after you reach that magic number, then you can be prosecuted. Give me a break.
Right. This is ridiculous. So Senator Smallwood Kuvas, I think that's how you say it, said it's on April 8th post on her April 8th post on Instagram that the bill is about keeping families out of the criminal justice system for making administrative errors, and it offers a smarter, more humane approach. Wow, what a cushy load of crap that is. People are taking advantage of the welfare system because they know they've learned to game the system. That's the problem with handouts from government, is that people will always try to find a way to take advantage of it. And this is only going to enable them further, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have them saying, they always do this. They couch this, they couch it with these kind of nice feeling words, and they try to use your emotions to say, oh, well, but the reality of the situation is that, okay, they're decriminalizing up to $25,000. So everybody go out there and steal $25,000 each from the government, and you'll be walking away scot-free.
Wow.
The supporters of this, they argue that so many fraud cases aren't actually fraud. They're clerical mistakes, misreported income, misunderstanding of eligibility or system glitches. But, let's be real here. If you're getting a huge amount of money or any money from the government, you know what's going on. And if it's a mistake or a glitch, maybe one time you can it's
maybe one time, but if it's like a reoccurring situation, then you know what you're doing. You know damn well what you're doing. And they just want to let the guardrails go. Go ahead, steal. That's how they do it. It's all fraud at every level. There's corruption in this from this government. And of course, if they enable people to steal like that, well, then guess what? They're going to continue to vote for the people that enable them to steal like that. It's how they keep them under control.
Right.
So, yeah. I mean, they say that, criminalizing these situations disproportionately, harms low-income people. Like leading to lost jobs, child custody issues, housing insecurity, all over a few hundred or maybe a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, well,
but we know different. I mean, for someone who, personally, it appeared in my life where I relied on help from the California system, and it was because we really needed it financially. We needed it, and so I've been a beneficiary of these things, but it's supposed to be just the government coming in and helping when you're at your worst. And
Right.
we only needed it for a short period of time. Just to,
That's
we were moving from one place to another, and then as soon as we could get off it, boy, of course we got off it because
right. That's the whole point. It's supposed to help you get back on your feet, not something that you sustain off of indefinitely. And they want to keep it in that situation where you're sustaining off it indefinitely because now you're literally dependent on the government for your existence and your money. And that's how they keep people voting Democrat, woke psycho Democrat time in and time again. And also it further contributes to the whole mindset that socialism is a good thing and capitalism is bad. So it helps, undermine, the fabric of America too. But having something in place to prevent this fraud, has a practical angle because in Los Angeles alone, there's up to 20,000 fraud referrals that are reviewed every year. But think about how much time that takes up, how many man hours that takes up. I mean, there's 365 days in a year. The government's got how many holidays now? 40 something, 50 something holidays a year, plus the weekends. So how are they supposed to tackle all these cases in a meaningful way to help identify what is or what isn't, fraudulent? So only 200 of these wind up being prosecuted every year. And so this bill allows counties to resolve most cases administratively, freeing up court resources and, reducing taxpayer costs on legal proceedings. But in short, backers of Senate Bill 560 want a system that holds people accountable, but not by sending them to jail for an error, as they are saying, in a confusing government form, because, they write things so well in those too. But the bill sets a dangerous precedent. If $25,000 in overpayments or fraud is no longer criminal, what's to stop bad actors from pushing the limit? That's the big issue.
Yep.
So good news is Republican Assemblyman Carl DeMaio called the bill an attempt to legalize welfare fraud. And he's right.
Calling it how it is.
He does a great job of that, and that's why they hate him. So, he's been warning that it will encourage abuse and jeopardize public trust in the government programs that's meant to help those in need. And I happen to agree with the guy because he's got common sense. So, he's five key, arguments are that fraud will increase, it will undermine fairness, federal enforcement could get harsher, repeat offenders won't be arrested, and it looks bad politically. And it's just one more thing for people to harp on California about. So,
well, we really do like Carl DeMaio, man. He is one of those. He's one of those representatives that actually talks with common sense, like you said. We need more of him, like more people like him in California, because then we'd see kind of more of a stop to this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So, well, look, we got to take our bottom of the hour break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Joshua Triciana, Eddie Floyd. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Eddie Floyd. Let me tell you about my favorite non-profit public charity, Wainema Wild Horse Sanctuary, located on the Forsyth Ranch in Hallelujah Junction area. And please go to www.wainemaranch.com. That's WYNEMA ranch.com.
Ugh, I'm so over this. I diet, I work out, and the scale won't budge.
I hear you. Nothing's more discouraging than doing all that work and seeing no result.
I just don't get it. I'm eating healthy, hitting the gym. What's your secret?
Honestly, I was in the same boat until I found Active Life Integrated Health.
Wait, what's different about them?
It's a natural weight loss approach. Dr. Tom and his team help with appetite suppression, energy boosts, hormone balancing, and the FM diet. It's not about starving yourself or exhausting workouts. It's about resetting your body to burn fat the right way.
I'm Dr. Waldorf, chiropractic physician at Active Life Integrated Health, where our natural approach helps you lose weight safely and effectively without extreme dieting or chemicals. Call 775-842-0065 today to schedule your complimentary consultation. Also, the first 25 callers who mention promo code Health Matters will receive 10% off of your treatment program. So call 775-842-0065 to boost your energy and start losing weight today.
Barbecue, the Butcher's Kitchen, would like to thank every customer for your loyalty and continued support through these challenging times. Call for takeout and delivery of rib tips, brisket, ahi, tuna, roasted veggies, and much more. Charbacue's open from 11 to 7, Monday through Saturday, and delivers hot food safe and healthy. Call 499-5855 for details. 499-5855 Charbacue, as featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives. Get real. Get into Charbacue Reno.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd and Joshua Matriciana today. And, we've been talking about Senate Bill 560 here in California. And, just so you know, the bill has passed through California's Senate Human Services and Public Safety Committees, and it's scheduled for a hearing on the Senate Appropriations Committee today, May 5th. So if it passes there, it will move to the Senate floor. And if it clears the Senate, the Assembly will be next. And so we're still early in the process, but the debate is heating up here. Welfare fraud is not just a budget issue. It's a values issue. And we know California is running out of morals and values. So how we respond to mistakes and misconduct, and it's going to say a lot about what kind of society we are. So if we criminalize poverty, we risk punishing people for surviving. If we remove consequences entirely, we risk undermining programs that millions rely on entirely. So it's
you bring up a good point there, man. I mean, the issue is that you've got this teeter-totter, this fine balance between helping those who are truly in need, and then also putting up the safeguards so it can't be exploited and taken advantage of to the detriment of all the taxpayers at large. And we're watching California, and we're seeing the results of a one-sided system where that seesaw has tipped, that scales of justice has tipped to one side extremely, so the whole state is going bankrupt because there's so much, not just waste and abuse, but fraud. And this is what this bill, is talking about. That's why we need to be vocal about it. It's happening today. Today it's May Day, or Cinco de Mayo, is when it's when it's going to the vote. So call your representative, get them hot on this. We don't want to see legalized fraud.
Yeah, no, we don't need to see that here in this state, and this is why it's important you guys get involved. And politics know what's going on, because you're going to have jerks like this trying to pass bills that do just that. So don't let them. Eddie, we got any texts that have come in?
Yeah, we do, as a matter of fact. And it came from a good friend of ours who's been on the air before. It's been a few weeks, but it's Scott in Salt Lake City. And Scott said, if I lived anywhere near California, I could hear all the local attorneys stand up and give a raising round of applause to both these bills.
Yeah, well, they want that litigation money. They want all that lawfare. It's disgusting.
Talking about lawfare here, man, like the next thing, we've got kind of a theme going on today where we're talking about how things that shouldn't be happening are because of the government's involvement. But one of these whistleblowers, like we were talking about, Carl DeMaio being kind of against this bill here. There's another person who's against this next thing that we're about to bring up that has to do with a much bigger, scarier issue than just welfare fraud.
Oh, yeah. Well, which one's that?
So we've got, RFK. He just gave his 100-day speech, just a couple days ago, and he brought something to light that very, very few people are talking about.
Well, human trafficking is what you're talking about, right?
That's exactly it, man.
Well, considering that there's over 300,000 missing children due to the open border policies of Biden, apparently, which we kind of knew, HHS has been involved in it. That's right. Health and Human Services has been involved in trafficking children here in this country. Now, that is a big, scary wake-up call. So we got a clip here I want to play for you guys of RFK talking about this issue, so you have a better understanding of what's going on. So play the clip.
We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration. And we are.
Wow.
I don't know if you could if you could hear that because it was a little bit low, but basically that was RFK putting exactly what Leo just said on blast.
Yeah. You know. For years, activists have been sounding the alarm about missing children, and Kennedy's approach is a little bit different. He's not just calling attention to the problem; he's working to solve it, and he has a team actively tracing the fate of nearly 300,000 children who have vanished from our government records. And to understand the scale of this crisis, we need to look at how the system works. And when children arrive at the southern border alone, they're handed over to HHS, which then places them with sponsors, and it's usually relatives or acquaintances in the U.S. And, well, there's a problem with that. In the rush to process cases, corners are cut. Background checks are rushed. Sponsors aren't properly vetted. And most shocking of all, there's almost no follow-up after placement. So investigative reporters have uncovered case after case of children forced to work in factories, slaughterhouses, and farms, sometimes for 12-hour shifts and often under the threat of coercion. And RFK Jr. argues that these are not isolated incidents, that they are inevitable outcomes of a system that prioritizes numbers over safety.
Okay, whoa. Hold on here for a second, because Leo, you just dropped a couple of bombshells right there that I think that if people actually understood the reality of this isn't just hearsay. This isn't just something that they're making up here. We're talking about children. We're talking about forced labor in places like factories and slaughterhouses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, this is America, man. That doesn't happen in America.
Oh, but it does.
Or does
it does happen. There's been a lot. I've heard stories of people going down to Brownsville to some of these Christian charities and picking up, van loads of people and taking them back to faraway places like Pennsylvania and basically turning these kids into slave labor and even sex slaves. This is a real thing that's happening in this country.
That's right.
So the good news is that, go ahead, Josh.
Look, so okay, I want to just bring this back because I'm sorry, I gotta hit this point home. Okay, there's a show out and totally unrelated. It's called Your Friends and Neighbors. It's about this guy who's really, really rich and lives in this really rich neighborhood, and he ends up, the point of the show is that he's actually, stealing from his friends and neighbors, and he's stealing like a $300,000 watch here, and the whole thing spins out of control. But the point of the show is that these affluent neighborhoods became so kind of just comfortable that they didn't set their alarm systems. They just kind of let these things happen. And I think that is showing that what's happening here in the United States is a very similar issue. We become so comfortable. We become kind of laid back in the sense where we think, oh, that couldn't happen in America. Somebody's protecting those children. Well, guess what? They're not. And in fact, the government has been actively involved, and evil people in the government have their, and RFK Jr. has put this on blast. And guess what? No one has even talked about it in the mainstream media. We're the only people talking about this, and this should be on every single news story, like right now.
Oh, yeah. This is a number that we've mentioned in the past over months, if not years, how bad this has gotten. And look, it takes investigative journalism to help break the news. And, major outlets like the New York Times and Reuters have exposed these horrifying stories of migrant children sent to sponsors who's exploited them for labor. And, it's not just a handful of cases. These are thousands of cases where this has been taking place. And even whistleblower reports inside HHS. It takes courageous staff to speak out about the pressure, to clear these shelters and expose that, that the child safety just isn't there. And RFK Jr. has pointed to these reports, and the evidence is pretty clear that the system's failure is not on accident. It's baked into the bureaucracy. This is by design. That's the other scary part. When you talk about evil people, Josh, sick, twisted, evil people, yeah, they're called psychopaths. And they've managed to get into government because they know what they're doing. They're motivated. They're motivated to do ill. So,
well, just what we were talking about in the previous segment here, they're trying to take away the laws that would be there to stop people from exploiting the system. And now here is a perfect example of where evil people have gotten into the government and have been exploiting other people, children, the most innocent ones out there.
Yeah. And with, these data gaps, there's official estimates that say around 85 children are just unreachable. And RFK Jr. believes that the real number is higher, possibly 300,000. That's the number that we've been running with for months.
Wow.
Because, and look, even if it is the low number, 85,000 children. Think about that. That's like four and a quarter Staples Centers full of children missing.
That's the population of entire towns.
Yeah, in this country, it's bigger than most towns in West Virginia, for example. I mean, that's a crazy number to think about. So, because the tracking system is so riddled with holes, we don't know where these kids are, or who they're with, or what's happening to them. This is a moral failure. I mean, forget mismanagement. This is a failure of morality here. So,
and after they're placed, Leo, there's no follow up with the families they're placed with. Did I hear that right?
Yep. There's no infrastructure in place to do that.
Wow.
And when you flood the border with illegal migrants in the way that the Biden administration did, you just overwhelm the system on top of that. So you have it baked in, plus you overwhelm it, and that's how you hide it and allow it to get to the levels that it's gotten to. I mean, this is scary to think about. Where the hell are these kids? What's happened to them? Do you guys have any ideas?
Well, man, look, here's part of the scary part of this whole plot. I mean, if you're going to be importing children for nefarious uses, where better is to bring them in from other countries?
Yeah, in the southern border.
They don't have this network of friends and family members that who are there. So where do they go? They just disappear to where? That's the big question. And unfortunately, I don't know if there's a real clear-cut answer. I mean, you get conspiracy theorists that's saying, oh, it's because people are drinking their blood or crazy stuff like that, which there might happen to 1 or 2 thousand.
Yeah, I hear a lot more about those stories, and you'd be surprised. Those are real things that happen.
I'm not dismissing that, but that's probably the content for an entire other show.
Okay,
there's so much information out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, look, Josh, we got to take our last break here on America Matters. So I want to talk maybe a little bit more about this when we get back. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd and Josh from Triciana. We'll be right back.
Ugh, I'm so over this. I diet, I work out, and the scale won't budge.
I hear you. Nothing's more discouraging than doing all that work and seeing no result.
I just don't get it. I'm eating healthy, hitting the gym. What's your secret?
Honestly, I was in the same boat until I found Active Life Integrated Health.
Wait, what's different about them?
It's a natural weight loss approach. Dr. Tom and his team help with appetite suppression, energy boosts, hormone balancing, and the FM diet. It's not about starving yourself or exhausting workouts. It's about resetting your body to burn fat the right way.
I'm Dr. Waldorf, chiropractic physician at Active Life Integrated Health, where our natural approach helps you lose weight safely and effectively without extreme dieting or chemicals. Call 775-842-0065 today to schedule your complimentary consultation. Also, the first 25 callers who mention promo code Health Matters will receive 10% off of your treatment program. So call 775-842-0065 to boost your energy and start losing weight today.
At A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, we've been accomplishing happy feet for over 30 years.
We offer a various range of shoe styles and sizes for both men and women. From all-season shoes and orthotics to work boots and safety shoes, our professional and reliable staff possesses the knowledge to help you find the proper shoes to fit your needs. Hard to fit? hard to find?
A Proper Fit Footwear is here to give our customers happy feet. We make people aware of potential foot problems as we're sizing their feet, suggesting the right arch support, and guiding them to the proper shoes for their needs.
Stop by a Proper Fit Footwear at 4001 South Virginia Street in the Reno Town Mall today, and allow the owner Mike Jones and our fabulous staff to find the perfect pair of shoes tailored to your specific needs.
A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, the home of happy feet, where comfort and your feet meet.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zacky with Eddie Floyd and Joshua Matriciano today. And well, we've been talking about what RFK Jr. has addressed, and I'll put out there in the opening that there's a lot of missing kids, and that this failure of all these missing children has a lot to do with HHS, and that what they've allowed to take place has been essentially built into the system. And they want to find these kids. They're working on it. But it's a crazy tragedy. This is a human rights violation. There's so many issues what's going on with this right now. And I don't know if there's much more you want to touch on.
Well,
this.
Leo, why don't I let you address the pushback, because this tees us up perfectly for our next segment.
All right. Okay. But yeah, look, the leftists are saying that RFK Jr. is exaggerating and he's conspiracy mongering or politicizing a crisis. Well, here's the reality, folks. They're missing. Okay. We're missing tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of children. And RFK Jr. is speaking up because the political class has ignored the crisis for years. Okay? When the government repeatedly fails to vet sponsors, when it loses track of tens of thousands of children, when it turns them away from credible whistleblowers, that's not a paperwork issue. Okay? That's a systemic collapse. And calling it out is not conspiracy. Okay? It's okay. And by the way, conspiracy means two or more people getting together to do something nefarious. All right. So it ignores the theoretical element. All right. What's happening here? Okay. This is a failure of leadership. So we can continue to sweep these failures under the rug, or we can stand with leaders like RFK Jr. who are willing to confront the darkness head on. And I challenge you, read the investigations, listen to the whistleblowers, and support the movement demanding justice for these kids.
Right.
Leo, you brought up a question right before we went to break. You said, what happened to all these kids, all these missing kids? Well, in our research, and this is actually one of our favorite people, Max Padilla, he's uncovered something that I think might be a partial answer to that question.
Max Padilla.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. That's all right. So, yeah, well, he's talking about Assembly Bill 379. So let's play Max Bonilla's clip.
This pervert from San Francisco, Scott Wiener, is now making an excuse for why our state legislature did not pass the bill to make sex trafficking 16 and 17-year-olds a felony. What the hell? This guy's a state senator, and he's trying to equate this bill to a bill that would potentially get an 18-year-old in trouble for offering his 17-year-old classmate $20 in order to fool around. No, that's not what this is about at all. First of all, I don't even know why you would make a joke out of sex trafficking. That's just stupid. High schoolers do stupid things, but that's not what this is about whatsoever. This is a red herring. This is a distraction. And honestly, I don't even know what's on this guy's laptop. Actually, I have some ideas. Maybe we should tag the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I would love if you guys could do that in the comments so that they can check into his laptop, because he's probably got some pretty serious stuff on there. Although Kash Patel, he's been a sissy about releasing this Epstein list, so we'll see how faithful he is about this. And Donald Trump also defunded the NPR and PBS and different, public television stations that are pushing propaganda on us with an executive order. Good, because they won't raise awareness about these kinds of issues. Apparently in California, they think it's okay to sex traffic 16 and 17-year-olds, especially Scott Wiener. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that guy Scott Wiener is a real sick puppy.
He is.
Yeah. So, and he's already gotten in trouble for all sorts of other perverted stuff, where he's like sending like naked photos and stuff like that.
Boy, that guy's on a roll.
Yeah, he's a real pervert, and the fact that anybody can want to defend this kind of stuff, it just makes you wonder: are they pedophiles? Because I'm pretty sure they are.
Well, yeah, then that's out there in the court of public opinion. But before you go on to talk about Max Padilla's passionate reaction, let me just bring this thing back kind of full circle. We've got a bunch of kids being trafficked into the United States by the health department. Okay, crazy, and they're disappearing. Crazy, but what's the one thing that you can't really make disappear? Well, their age. Okay, so their age is the one thing that can still tie a criminal, to them. So if these kids are being trafficked for sex trafficked in the United States from other countries, well, whether they're 16, 17, 15 or younger, well, what they're trying to do with this bill is remove the legal, take the teeth out, essentially.
Wow.
Right. But why would anybody even want to do something like that unless you're a sick, pervy bastard who partakes in this? I mean, I don't see any other reason why somebody would try to, take the teeth out of a bill like that, to protect kids like this. Why would you want to do that? Why would you not want it to be a felony? Why would you not want people to face real consequences? I don't understand that.
Well, and we've talked about this on previous shows. It has to do with the baseline morality of the country. And if the predators and the perverts have made their way into leadership positions in our country, well, guess what? They're going to bring all of those things that they think are okay, which in this case is, pedophilia. Which is awesome.
Yeah, this reminds me of one of the first bills that Gavin Newsom signed into law, where basically it said that if there was you were exempt from like being put on like a sex predator list if you with a 10-year age gap. So essentially like a 12-year-old and a 22-year-old could, have sex, and that 22-year-old would not be considered a predator, a sex predator or a sex offender.
That's ridiculous.
I feel like all this stuff that's been happening between the child sex trafficking, the lackadaisicalness on bills, like the first ones that we talked about, like enabling basically fraud to take place to keep people voting for these folks to stay in power. And then they start passing bills that basically neuter any punishments for sex with minors. So you set up a situation where they enable people to get free handouts that encourages them to vote for them, to keep them in power, to then pass bills that essentially protect perverts and pedophiles. So
look, what you're doing is you're putting a massive sign you're slapping this sign on California. You're saying, hey, if you want free stuff, come to California. If you like to have sex with kids, come to California. There's no repercussions. If you like to break the law and steal, come to California. So we're attracting all of these, let's say, morally questionable individuals, and we're telling them, hey, move here. This is the place for you.
Yeah, you're not going to be bothered as much. You can essentially get away with that.
These queers want to normalize having sex with kids. That's what they're doing.
Well, that's
why they normalize this.
Yeah, and then they push the stuff on the books in schools. Hey, like learn how to, masturbate at 8 years old. Yeah, stuff like
kindergarten.
It's all of this. Why is there this constant conversation about children and sex that I've noticed has been happening, well, for the last decade or so?
Right.
This is a constant conversation that we're having, and it's always involving government to some degree.
And the Pizzagate.
Oh, I mean, that's just one. That's one layer of so many things. It's just I'm so confused as to why people haven't made the correlation that I can't believe we're having these conversations over and over and over again.
Well, it comes down to one basic thing. Okay, it's literally a tactic of the influence that wants to destroy our republic. They're coming in, and one of the core things is you have to take God out, you have to take the strong family structure out, and then you have to corrupt the mindset of the innocent and the youth. And once you do those things, guess what? It's like a city with no walls. In a war zone, there's no way to defend yourself. So you can come in and start infiltrating with this propaganda that allows us to be ruled by predators. It allows evil people to be in control and innocent people to be corrupted. And that's what we're fighting against here every single day. And that's what, Leo, I know, because we've had we've had these conversations before. That's one of the things that empowers you to do what you're doing right now by, running for governor. Like, you want to see a change in this. You want to see the evil people wiped out.
Oh yeah, I mean, anybody who wants to even limit the punishments on people that want to abuse children in this fashion, there's something wrong with you, and you have no business being in a position to write laws into effect. That's insane to me.
Right.
All of this that's what I mean. The conversations that we're having about kids and sex in the same sentence over and over again. It's just, how have we as a society gotten to this point where it's just kind of like, well, we'll let those, these people are passing the bills. We're not gonna make a fuss about it. We're just gonna keep our heads down because we're trying to survive in this messed up world, in this messed up economy. Everything's so bad, So look, there's an amended version of AB 379 that's currently pending, and Assembly member Krell has expressed her intention to reintroduce the original felony provision into future legislative sessions. Hopefully, we can get that felony component in there. That will definitely be a good step in the right direction. But I mean, we need to have a legal framework that fully protects all minors from sexual exploitation. Period.
What we really need here, and I know that this is what most people that I talk to, they're not angry enough because they're not talking to their elected representatives. They're not putting these seditious people on blast.
No, you're right. You're right, Josh. We're just out of time, unfortunately. So thanks for everybody to tuning in to America Matters. We have a lot more to talk about, obviously. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. We'll see all of you at noon, so tune in then.